Good evening. As we get settled into our chairs, I want to just thank you for being here. This is our public forum tonight. We're talking about next year's budget, and we do have our directors in tow here, and we will be here to answer questions as they arise. But I also want to stop and recognize our mayor and council that are here. Mayor and council members, hello, how you doing? But tonight it's going to be primarily two presenters. It'll be myself as the city manager, and then also Terry Canada, who's our budget manager. And then we'll open it up for questions after we get through the presentations. So this is the public forum, and it's the one that we're holding that gives you public an opportunity to just interact with staff. Now, certainly there are other venues throughout the budget season. We've been working on this for several months. We've had budget work sessions with our council. We've had several meetings, public meetings, if you will, but really in a council setting. This one is more for the public directly to ask for questions. So tonight, here's what we're looking at doing. We do want to talk about some of the accomplishments. We're entrusted with taxpayer money, and we want to talk about some of the accomplishments that are going on. We will be talking about the framework of really how we came about developing this year's budget. We have some initiatives that we plan on achieving next year as well, and we'll be going through those. And then we will review what we're looking at for a draft budget proposal. We go before our council on May the 6th. So next Monday we'll be in front of council with a draft budget proposal. So that's kind of a look ahead. And that portion will be covered by Terry Canada, again, our budget manager, and then we'll be looking for feedback questions. As stated previously, or just before the meeting started, if there are questions that are even outside, once we stop our formal presentations, staff will be around to answer questions after this is over as well. So one of the areas where we focus on is customer service. We know we're in the service business. As a city, we realize we provide service to our citizens, to our constituents, to our businesses. So that's one where we are very proud of the efforts that we do with our customer service. Some of the things I want to point out, these facts or these statistics here are really a result of citizen satisfaction survey. We conduct that every 2 years. We actually have one coming up this end of this calendar year, but it's an opportunity for us to hear directly from the public. What are we doing right? Maybe what are we not doing quite so well? But it is important for us to really understand the public's perception of what we do. I want to point out a couple of statistics here. One is that if you look at the little balls there, they kind of look like Christmas ornaments, but 94% of the public rated us as a great place to live. Think about that. That's an amazing statistic we're very proud of, and we think it gets better after that. 94% are happy with the quality of life that's provided here and the services provided by the city. 94 are satisfied with the services on a day in and day out basis. So we think that that's important. And if you stop and think about that, how many even in the private sector businesses achieve some of the ratings that we have? And that's what we are going to continue to strive for, to maintain these high ratings. We're not perfect, but we're sure going to give it one heck of a shot. The other is feeling safe in our community. 93% of our citizens feel safe, and that statistic is both daytime and evening. So we are proud of our public safety groups that help keep it that way within the city. So that is a little bit about customer service. We like to know, from that, when we do those surveys, we also find out what the public wants. It was about 4 years ago that they let us know that they wanted to do recycling, and we listened to those comments, and we will again end of this calendar year when we do it once again. So this current fiscal year, we work in a fiscal year from July 1st through June 30th. That's a fiscal year under which we operate. And some of the highlights, and you'll see them here on the slide, Again, if you look at the enhanced city services, those top two items there really came out again from the the citizen survey. And when they talked about the amenities that they really wanted to have in the community to increase the quality of life, they brought up two things. Expand the library. We're in about 1,800 square feet today, but we are expanding within this complex in Veneta to a library that's going to be over 8,000 square feet. So that's one where we're very proud of the fact we were able to actually accomplish that, what the citizens wanted. Higher education, that's another amenity that actually was even higher than the library in terms of what the citizens were asking for. We're very proud that Franklin Pierce University has leased additional space, again here at the Veneta complex, 14,500 square feet, and they have expanding their programs, including even at the PhD level. So that is a focus, and it does not stop there. We will continue to strive to try and get higher education within this community, and that is an absolute goal that we'll continue to focus on. The Telecom 911, that was one of the areas where we had our employees, the telecom operators, if you will, that answer those emergency calls. They were in a facility that was not really, we had outlived it, and we've outgrown it, and there are a lot of things that we know that we can do better in a larger facility with more modern equipment. So actually, again, in the same complex, we have a 911 center that's being built. We're looking for it to be completed by the end of the calendar year. So we're looking forward to that. We'll have a grand opening, ribbon cutting when we get to that point. On the quality of life thing, some of the things that we like to do is, and these are areas where the council's been very clear as far as really trying to create a sense of place, sense of community. And we have done several events. We continue to do several events throughout the year. Everything from July 4th to Home Plate for the Holidays, which is right around the Christmas season, to movies in the park, on and on. But we do look for opportunities where we can bring the public together, and that's one of the things we try and accomplish. Spring training. We had our most successful year this year in terms of the attendance. We did break some records, so it's continuing to improve, but that's an asset the city has that we continue to take advantage of, not just during spring training, but throughout the year. We have a lot of events that are held there on really a day in, day out basis outside of spring training. Everything from weddings to youth softball tournaments to leagues that come from around the country to soccer to just a lot of public events. So with the fields that we have around there, that's one we think that we do well with the quality of life adding to it. And finally, well-maintained. It takes a lot of work to maintain the rights-of-way, get those weeds out of the way, and yeah, they pop up every spring, they always will, but it's staying on top of that, and it's staying also to add elements to our code compliance to make sure that we have a lot of pride in this community that we do try and strive to keep things well-maintained, whether it's under our control or working with others, and including our citizens in some cases. Economic development. This is one we're a bit excited about. Over the course of the recession, there were over 2,200 jobs created in this community through private sector. That's an amazing number when you think about the Great Recession that we have come out of. But during that time, we actually added a lot of jobs to this community with those private sectors. And I want to talk about a few of those. Aviation and aerospace, very near and dear to our heart. While we don't own the airport, City of Phoenix owns the airport. We're great partners with them, and it is an important amenity for us. And some of the things that have happened in aviation and aerospace, we have a company called Aero Turbine. Aero Turbine is at the airport itself, and they're in about 100,000 square feet. 2 years ago, they had 50 employees. Now today, they have over 200, and those are high-paying positions. So that was one that we're proud of. Prime Solutions Group. It's an engineering consulting firm that competed with just a variety of high-tech firms, 42 others in the country, actually received a Small Business Innovation Research Grant. And what they are tasked to do is shooting missiles out of the sky with other missiles, and so it's talk about very high tech it is. But they did receive a very large grant for that. But that's there at the airport as well. Other economic development projects in manufacturing, Scholler Arca Systems. They manufacture plastic reusable cartons. 75 people today, they'll be at 150 down the road. And that's, again, more jobs. Cooks and Door, which is right across the street from the airport, 160,000 square feet. That'll be brand new. They're moving their headquarters here, or actually their total operations here. And that will be looking at hiring 300 people when they do end up building. So just a lot of interest in Goodyear right now. And as you hear during the budget presentation, we're putting resources toward it. This is a time for us to take advantage as we come out of this recession, to take advantage of the opportunities we have in Goodyear and bring more employers, bring more jobs. And we absolutely have a strategy to do that. A couple we like to talk about also, medical devices. That's an area of focus. We look at a couple of our partners, Cancer Treatment Center of America. Amazing what they've done since they've been here. And they are now expanding another $46 million to their campus. Unfortunately, their business is good. Fortunately, they provide an incredible service to those in need. But 5 years ago, they felt like they'd have about 400 employees. Today, they have 600. 5 years later, instead of the 400, they have 600. And they're looking at even ramping up to 800 to 1,000 in the next few years. Very, very impressive. West Valley Hospital, we had a chance to meet with the new CEO the other day. And he's a ball of fire, I will tell you that. But they're doing an expansion right now as well. They're adding 100 rooms, a couple surgical suites, 92,000 square feet, and they employ about 700. And they are looking at going as a Trauma 2 facility, which will further expand the services they provide to this community. Banner Health, a little smaller, but it's up the hill. It's in Estrella, and that is about 18,000 square feet, but it will include other medical providers. So that is a good amenity to have up in the Estrella area. I'll talk about a couple others. We do have some internet fulfillment distribution centers. Macy's is doing an expansion, adding 360,000 square feet, 100 full-time jobs, another 325 seasonal jobs. That's a $24 million investment. So if you keep hearing about these investments, what that does is that builds our property tax base, but as importantly, it brings the jobs here, and those jobs are paying our residents. So excited about what we're doing with economic development. In terms of accessibility, you can look out, you can see the 303. We're excited to have that done. That'll be about a year and a half, a little less, probably September of 2014 when that's completed. So that'll be a good amenity to have in this community in terms of getting folks around, but truly about economic development opportunities once that major transportation corridor opens up. Government efficiencies. One of the directions of this council was let's look at the food tax. We were at 2%, and when sales tax rates were changed, it went to 2.5%. Over the last 2 years, it has dropped 0.25% a year. So now it's back down to 2% again. We think that's very important, and we were able to achieve that this year, January 1st, to reduce that rate. We have initiatives. It's the first time that the City Council has adopted a city strategic action plan, a strategic action plan. While we've had them in the past, departments have had them, been very important as far as us keeping our eye on the ball, looking at strategies, what gets measured gets done. In this case, it was adopted by council. This budget is driven around this strategic action plan in several areas, which will be gone through in a few minutes. In addition to that, we've done performance measures. And one of the things that the city has done is we look to the International City County Managers Association looking at best practices and being part of their performance measurement program. So we have been doing that. In addition, we reached out to Alliance for Innovation. We said we want to measure against other valley cities as well. You know, yes, you compare to cities back east or in the Midwest, but there are differences when you live in Arizona. We don't do a lot of snow removal in Goodyear. But so you have to look at apples to apples. And one of the things that we did is we are starting to look at what other cities are doing. Where do we stack up well? Where don't we? In addition, we're bringing a lot of an internal and challenging our departments to come up with performance measures that really demonstrate the efficiencies and cost reductions that we're hoping to and know we will achieve. So the framework for the budget, you have to have some boundaries. And one of the things in talking to our city council, we are taking a conservative approach. You can I picked up the paper today and read that they're starting to get some confidence in the part of the consumers. But it's way below the average over the course of many years. So it's still way down there. I think we're, it's in the 60%-ish range right now. And that is, while improving, it's still not there. So when you look at taking a conservative approach, there are really several reasons that we do that. The other part of a conservative approach is, even at the national level, there are risk factors. You look at sequestration, and sequestration does have an impact on us as it relates to our airport, but it'll have also in the defense industry. So we are wary of that. We're looking at other impacts that are coming out at the federal level. We feel like the confidence, as I stated earlier, isn't quite there and projected for slow, cautious economic growth. So we have to factor these in when we do the budget. Now, if you go to the state level, this state is heavily reliant on sales tax. This year, actually May 31st of 2013, the temporary sales tax goes away. They are also looking at some changes to the taxing methods. And where that definitely impacts cities is one is on construction sales tax. If there's a push in that legislation for that to actually be a point of sale. Well, in Goodyear, we don't have a lot of places for point of sale to collect that construction sales tax. But if that were to go forward, that's a $6 million loss to our budget projected next year alone. So although if it does go forward, I do need to be clear that it would not take effect next year. It would take effect in 2015. But nonetheless, these are things that we have to look at when we develop this budget. We also want to look at the quality of life. I talked about what the citizens, some of their satisfaction ratings. So what do you do to try and retain those? And as I stated a little bit earlier, we're putting more resources to maintain those, and code compliance specifically. If you look at efficiencies, that's the middle section there. It's been several years since well, I want to say it was probably in 2007, we were actually authorized to 592 employees. We never reached that point, but those were authorized. The city council sets the upper limit for how many employees that we can have at this city, so that is part of the budget adoption. We have been at 511 now for at least 3, if not 4 years, and we have done a lot to just really try and hold that at 511. Now, if a position leaves, we take a look at that and say, do we really need to fill that? Can we repurpose it, make it a change of position classification to something that's more needed? So very conscious effort, a lot of working together with the departments to make this happen. We've restructured city departments. We have development services, for example, this past year. That was a consolidation of 2 departments into 1. So that's a reduction of 1 director right there. But while you're reducing some of your top levels, the important thing is it's actually improving the level of service to our development community, to our residents when they're doing construction. Strategic action plan, I talked about that a little earlier. That is one where we think there are a lot of efficiencies as you look at what is in there, and that is posted online. So that could be out there for the public to look at. So we're proud of that, and that was adopted, as I mentioned earlier, by the council. Some of the results as it relates to quality of life, talked about a little bit earlier, and I won't go back into these in a lot of detail, but it is we do want to maintain the citizen satisfaction levels. We are devoting resources to economic development, as I stated earlier. And we're going to measure those. We're going to measure job creation, capital investment, those types of things. performance measures. That is should be completed in the next month or so. We're well on our way to having those done. They'll be finalized. They'll be presented to council. Now, opportunities. As I mentioned, we are 10% developed as a city. We're 70,000 population. We're on our way to 650, maybe 700,000, who knows? But it'll be after I'm retired when we hit those levels, certainly. But the point is we have a lot of opportunity here. We have a lot of vacant land that is set aside for economic development, for job creation, for private sector, and we know that we could take advantage of that. The next bullet there is regional partnerships and solutions. There are several things that we're working on behind the scenes with other cities, with other agencies. How do we bring together the resources we need, combine the resources? It's not just us spending the money, it's sharing in solutions together and leveraging those dollars. Workforce planning. We are spending a fair amount of time on this, whether it's on succession planning, whether it's looking at what we do in terms of training our workforce, but we do need to know that we need to put some dollars there, certainly some resources there, and that's what we plan on doing. Technology, we can do a better job with technology. We know that we can add some efficiencies there, whether it's our website, whether it's some of the software that runs a lot of our programs. So those are things we'll be looking at in terms of opportunities. On the challenges, we live in the desert, and one of the things that we're relying on for growth is water. We have hired a water resource manager about 8 months ago. I get that confirmation of the nod back in the audience. Thank you, Mark. About 8 months ago, but it's one that you have to do this one right. So when you look at water, it's, yes, we're dependent on well water right now, but it's how do we get Central Arizona Project water here? And there is a whole set of strategies as it relates to making sure that we have water for the future. Aging fleet and equipment. Stuff just, tires out, some of the equipment that we have. So we have to make sure that we're replacing fire trucks and our police vehicles and those types of things. So you have to be able to set aside money for some of those replacements. Challenges, while it's an opportunity, it's also a challenge to upgrade our website. Why do we want to do that? Reason you want to do that, you want to make it a lot more user-friendly to the public. If you try and navigate the website now, it's a challenge. That's why this is under challenges. And we feel like we can do a lot better job, and even to the point where we can interact with the social media. And then finally, on the needs from general plan transportation and the Parks Master Plan, and I'll hit these in just a second in a little more detail. Like right now, planning for the future. You have to do some planning, but the thing about planning is when we do our planning, it's one where we involve the public. It's in one where we involve the experts. The first bullet there is on the master plans for the general plan. The state law requires that every 10 years we have to go to the vote of the public to update our general plan. And that is a Bible of how we develop. It's how we do our land uses. It's where our priorities are, and we are very, very involved with our citizenry. Matter of fact, we have posted on there the website where you can go in directly and give us comments. We want the public comments on GoodyearConnects.com. We've had several public meetings where we've had rooms filled with our citizens and giving us ideas as far as what to incorporate into the general plan. So it's very, very driven by the public, and it will be voted on next year. We're doing a transportation master plan, and this is one where you have to plan your travel corridors throughout the city. While we've done a good job, it's one of those again, 10% developed. Where do we go from here? So, and that's one, again, that involves the public in getting the input for transportation. We have a parks master plan. Do we get more land for parks? What kind of recreational programs? What's important to families? What's important to not just families, but those that are now, the kids are out of the nest? What kind of recreational programs can we do that really meet the needs of the public? And these are things that are going on this year. So a lot of public input. Economic development. We have a great partner in APS. APS is funding the majority of a strategic plan for our economic development. This is one where we're interacting again with citizenry to help develop that. We do have to put $10,000 toward this study while they're funding the rest of it, but that's one where we are going to relook at our strategies, see where our targets should be, and just a validation. Water resources, already talked about that, but that's one where we have to look ahead and know where we're going to put our dollars to bring that, that resource into the community. Other highlights for next year, preserving our assets. You have roads out there, you have to maintain the roads. If you don't maintain the roads, you're in there and you're tearing them up. Anyone been down Cedarville Avenue lately? You will see that. That's what a road looks like, torn up. What we're doing is we're looking at ways of preserving the asphalt with different treatments so we don't have to tear up our streets and we can prolong the life of those. And that is a huge impact to our citizens by not having to spend extra money when you don't have to. We have needs in equipment and technology. Everyone knows if you bought a computer back 10 years ago, people would probably laugh at you. I don't know, I don't want to hack anyone off, but it is. It's obsolescence. Eventually they reach that stage. And technology can really improve our efficiency, so we have to spend some dollars there. I've already talked about code compliance. The next one is priority-based budgeting. That is one where the most progressive cities will take their budgets and they'll tie them to their performance measures, to their programs, to their service levels. And that's one where we are going to really get engaged in that. This year we did, again, the strategic action plan. We've done the performance measures. This is the next one that makes sense for us to go forward in priority-based budgeting. It's an easier way to measure the effectiveness of where we're putting our dollars. The last one is investing in employees. Employees are our most valuable asset. We are a service industry. 70% of the cost general fund go toward employees. Again, that's what we do. You know, we provide service to the public. So we need to make sure that we're competitive. One of the things that we're doing is proposing to council to consider an average 2.5% wage increase for what we call our non-sworn. So that would not be for fire and police, those public safety areas, but that's what we're looking at. We have to evaluate. Health insurance premiums go up every year, and health programs change, and we have to change with it. And they're not, the programs we have projected forward are not as good as what they were in the older days, if you will. But you have to balance that out. You have to be fair to the employees. You also have to be fair as far as what the cost is to the citizens. Okay, wrapping up the budget highlights. Public safety, already talked about the 911 facility. We are doing another area where we're bringing on a couple of people. Now remember I said we're staying at 511. But as part of that, we need to bring on a person that helps out in evidence. We get a lot of evidence. That we have to take care of by state law, and there are many requirements as far as how you maintain your evidence. So we're adding a person there. Records management, we're adding a person there. Both of these reside in the police department. We know that those are areas where we need to devote resources. We had a fire assessment that was completed recently, and there are a lot of recommendations that came out of that. And those recommendations really are what are going to drive where we go forward. With a lot of the initiatives that we'll see in the fire department. We have every confidence that we're going to achieve those recommendations. So that's one as well. Public amenities, talked about that a bit. Library, and we're actually going to be having a work session update on that on May the 13th. Higher education, stay tuned. We're aggressive. We want to try and attract more. Parks, part of the budget is that we want to maintain what we have, everything from playground equipment to sidewalks. We have a splash pad over there at the community park where we had to resurface it. Found out today that it was done. We have a little more work to do, so but those are the things you have to do. You have to maintain the assets. So And then lastly, that's on here, public amenities, and we think it is a public amenity. As a website is how you communicate, one of the most vital ways you communicate with the public. So that's what we have that kind of sets the stage for what we see in this budget. So with that, it's my privilege and opportunity to bring up Terry Canada. She is our budget manager. She will get through some of the specifics on what you can expect in the budget.
Well, good evening. I'm probably going to talk a little more in detail about some of the broader concepts that Brian was talking about. Put it down to my 5-6 level here. I'm going to cover a little bit about Budget 101 and then the key elements of the budget as we put it together. Many of you have been through a number of the sessions that we've already had with the City Council and as a staff. As you know, we've talked about the operating budget, the capital improvement plan, and then the debt service. So I'll have some highlights from those presentations that we've had before. So what is a budget for the public folks that are here? The budget is a mechanism used to meet the needs of the community. So as Brian stated before, we have a number of needs, anything from health and welfare to recreation, parks, kids programs, public safety, your fire rescue, and police services, your utilities. How do we get the water and wastewater in, the wastewater out? Infrastructure, bridges, roads, streetlights, things like that. How do you get involved as a citizen? We have a number of things that come up throughout the year. The website continually has stuff for interaction for the budget as well as all the other programs at the city. You can attend work sessions. They're recorded on Granicus. We produce a In Focus magazine that has a number of informational issues devoted to the budget and things that are going on around the town. But above all, be proactive. This is actually our budget season right now. We started in January where we do some work sessions with the City Council. So if you wanted to follow that, you could actually pick that up in January. We have a number of sessions that go through April and May. I'm going to get into kind of the legal requirements later. So by all means, you can pick this up during the year and get involved and attend and listen and voice your opinions and your information that you would like to see forward in the budget to your City Council. What does the council do? The council sets the policies. This is why we're meeting. We have a series of, a lot of time goes into this. They are setting the policy and the guidelines for your city to carry out all these services that we have been talking about. The other thing they do is throughout the year they modify the budget. They approved any adjustments that happened throughout from July through the following June. And most importantly, that we're coming up right now is they approve the budget. Staff, on the other hand, works to develop. We're like the meats and potatoes of it, if you will. We put it all together. We probably have 4,000 line items, a number of funds that we run. We put that all together. We balance it out. We propose that to the City Council. Again, we kind of package that in more understandable terms, and we go ahead and the city manager then balances that out the month of May and April, and we're getting ready to propose that on Monday night. Will be the draft budget. There's a couple weeks that we have for any kind of changes that would be involved in that, and then as we adopt the budget throughout the year, we'll report back on it to the council. We come back every quarter in our financial reports and we adjust the budget. So kind of chronologically, how this all works is it actually begins, we have a council retreat, if you will, or an advance in the fall. We get out some major issues, a lot of the capital projects or any specific projects that council wants to see or discuss so that we're incorporating those well early into the plan. In January, we have a work session that we do a mid-year update, and so we inform council about how we're doing as the plan was put forward in July. How are we doing versus revenues and expenditures, and what can we expect for the upcoming year? Staff does a lot of call heavy lifting during the month of February, March, April, where we're actually looking at all the line items, balancing that out. We put forward the supplemental process whereby the departments are justifying, if you will, any increases they have to their budgets, new programs they want to put forward. As Brian talked about, some of those position reallocations all go on. Once, again, that's approved and kind of recommended by executive management, it moves forward in May. or I'm sorry, March and April we do the work sessions. May is where we're at right now. Again, it's a public forum. We're going to go ahead and do the draft presentation. And then the final steps are legal requirements through the Arizona state statutes. We adopt the tentative budget, and that sets the maximum ceiling that we can have for expenditure authorization. We then the last week in June, we adopt the final budget, and the property tax levy is adopted in July. And again, all of this, if you want to follow this through the steps, is on the website. We also post in the local paper. We have some legal requirements where we'll post the tentative, the full budget. It's going to be right around $200 million this year, so the full budget will be posted in the paper and on the website. With that, I'm going to now talk about some of the components of the budget. This is essentially kind of the base budget, and so this is what we operate with. It kind of rolls over year after year. This is what funds your general day-to-day operations. As we talked about before, your public safety is the largest percentage of that. It's about 35%. That would include all police and fire, and then public works is next at about 22%. That's probably what you most come in contact with other than the police and fire. It would include your water, your wastewater, streets, facilities, and probably a lot of what the general public sees. And then parks and recreation, 11% support services, which would include kind of the overhead if you would think about that, but it's what like our group does to support the rest of the city, finance, legal services, HR, and then we have general government, and that is city manager. It would be everything that you'd find at any other city in the state. So you would have your city manager, your court, legal, and then development services, as Brian was saying. That is now it's kind of a combination of active development services, which is your permitting, your plan reviewing, and we've also have engineering working in that group too. It's development services. And that runs right around $80 million. Again, that was kind of the base. Moving year to year is about $80 million. When we add in the one time and the approvals for this year, I think it's going to be right up around $87 million. So with that, I'll briefly touch on the components of the core areas that of the services we provide. Public safety runs right around $28 million. A couple of the new things they're going to do this year, more in detail than Brian was talking about, we will have increased operating costs for that 911 facility. As you can imagine, we're building a new building. We got to turn the lights on, keep the air on. We also are going to have some improvements to an impound yard, evidence storage, as Brian was talking about from the one of the recommendations from a recent study. We've seen a lot of a big increase in our emergency medical calls, and therefore we have some increase in medical supplies. We're going to bring back community education. We had a reduction in that service level during the recession. And then we have we have a lot of intergovernmental agreements with some other folks. The emergency service agreement with fire is through the city of Phoenix, and we do have an increased contract cost there. A lot of the contract costs with our IGAs are based on the population growth or the demand for services. And so if we're participating in one of those, as you see, either an increase calls for demand or service or population increase, you're going to see those costs go up. Development services, as Brian was saying, is kind of recently, we pulled that all together and provide a more unified approach to the services they provide. We do have a number of things going on there planned for fiscal year 14. We have a couple of planning efforts that are going forward. We also, we're seeing some increase in our single-family permits for calendar year 12, ending December. We were up over 900 permits, which is pretty good. A couple years ago, we were down to about 450. We are on track for about 1,000 permits in 2013, so we are seeing the impact of that with our staffing levels. We are getting ready to do the second year of the general plan that Brian talked about, so some added costs for that particular activity. The streets system is going to receive some software maintenance to keep track of all those roads we were talking about, and then some increased supplies for maintaining the signs and a number of signals. We've had a lot of increase in the last couple of years for that. There is, in addition to that, a little more than $1 million increased money in the pavement preservation to keep our streets and roads safe. General government, as I was saying, is like I said, is the kind of the core of the government: the manager, the attorney, court, clerk, counsel. There is some professional conference attending to make sure we keep up on some best practices, communication services. We have an outside consultant that we are contracting with to provide some services there, and then some lobbyist fees. Support services, that includes IT, finance, human resources. We do have, as people buy packages for software, there's these ongoing maintenance costs every year. It's just as if you kind of like your license for the car, and so Dan and IT manages all that, and they centralize that to ensure that we're legal and that we're paid on time and that we have the right license for the people that are using the software. We're putting some money. It's not a lot of money for PCI compliance. That just ensures our security when we're having your information go back and forth from customer billing to applying for service, all of that information to make sure that we're secure and your information is very secure when you use our website. Hardware replacement, and Brian talked about website improvements. We have a replacement fund for our computers to make sure that they are keeping up to date. We run it's well over 500 PCs, I know, mobile devices, and we usually put the desktop units are usually on a 5-year replacement. So we have funding to ensure all that stuff stays up to date. Parks and Recreation, this is kind of the good year for them. During the recession, we didn't have a lot of extra funding to put into infrastructure improvements or to keeping stuff up, and so now we're gonna kind of go back, and there's been some pent-up demand. So you're gonna see in your parks, it's really cool. You're gonna get some new swings and some benches, improved trash cans. Nathan's gonna be able to equip the guys with some replacement mowers, much needed equipment to make them do their job more efficiently and safer too. There's gonna be there's an initiative here to do sidewalk improvements to replace and repair any cracks you may see around. And then also we're going to enhance some of the right-of-way and the plant replacement. Public Works is, again, this is a growing area as we put population. Those permits that were at 1,000, each of them bring about 2.6, 2.8 people per house coming in. So we're going to see this pretty much every year in Public Works. These are the people that service all those new businesses and folks that are coming in. So there's a number of budget supplementals or initiatives that were put forward just for standard operating costs. We have to pay more electrical, more chemical, just more cost to produce more water or treat more wastewater. We have some increases in permit fees to keep us, again, legal and compliant. We're going to do some facility improvements. And then as far as the residential container trash program, we have a service contract with Waste Management, and there's an increased cost for that too. So how do we pay for all this? Part of it for general government operations comes from your property tax. You can see here we have a comparative 13 over 14 year. It's going to go up, it's right around $400,000. And so the primary property tax, that actually goes through that $7 million that you see, that goes to pay for all the general government operations. There's a number of other sources that go with that. We bring in their sales tax in general government. I really didn't do a slide on revenue. We also receive about $16 million from state shared revenue. We have a number of user fees for folks that use our services that are pretty specific, such as the permitting fees that come in addition to this primary property tax. The secondary levy, the $4 million, goes to pay the general obligation debt. And I'll talk about that in a few slides. So what does this mean to you, Mr. Taxpayer? The increase of proposed rate, it'll be part of our legal adoption that's coming up in June. There's a public hearing, and again in July we'll adopt this. It's really going to be right around $7.34 for an average household a year. So not too much, but it does go to fund a lot of the city services in the general fund. The other component of the budget that's pretty large this year is going to be the capital improvement plan. What I have here is a 5-year slide. And this just tells you by type where the city is putting the money for the next improvements over the 5 years. The first year of the plan is what's actually adopted in the legal part of the budget process. It's going to be right around $10.7 million. I think we have a couple ads from discussions this week. It may go over a little over $11 million when we're done. But you can see the breakdown there. Total for the 5 years about $43.8 million. And there are a variety of revenue sources that support this. We do have impact fees, so we charge the folks that are building new houses and commercial in our city. They all pay a fee to go in and pay for the infrastructure. So infrastructure development fees are a large portion of this. We also have water revenue bonds, general obligation bonds, although we don't have any future ones right now that help pay for this too. We put general fund money into it, and occasionally we'll put operating funds into some of the utility funds projects. How this kind of fares out for next year, again, it was at $10.7 million. The majority of it is going toward facility and technology projects. I'll touch on the specific projects that are highlighted in 14 in just a minute. But here it is by breakdown. And streets is another large component of that, which you would expect in a growing community, about $5.6 million. So here's some of the key projects that are coming up not only next year, but in the next the 4 years after that. There is just kind of go in order here. There's a water line that's planned to come in, and actually what that is to service a different type of water that will be low in cost, and it'll save the ballpark money from irrigating those fields with potable water. We are intending to construct a new fleet facility. I think that's primarily paid for by those impact fees I was talking about. So as the people come in, they paid an impact fee for public works to help growth pay for growth. There's a road improvement out on Indian School to widen that to 4 lanes. It looks like it's from the 303 loop to Sarville. We also are starting a replacement solution, if you will, enterprise-wide replacement solution for our financial system and a number of plug-in systems. And so this is the first year we're doing the evaluation this year. This is the first year of that program coming up in 14. We have some parks that are going to be improved through the recommendations and the identification in the Parks Master Plan, and then another intersection improvement on Goodyear Boulevard. And so the third component of the budget is the debt service by source. Our debt payment, if you will, for fiscal year 14 is right around $26 million. And this is how it's paid for. I will start with the secondary property tax from the slide before is right around $4 million. Utilities, which are the utility funds would be for water and wastewater. It's a large portion of our infrastructure, so a lot of the money coming in from those years of fees are going to pay for the related infrastructure to get those services again to the citizens here. Impact fees are right around $1 million. General fund is about $6.7 million. That's primarily for our PIC bonds that we have. You'll notice on their improvement districts are $3.5 million. That's actually for a district that we have that's, see if I get this right, it's off of, it's where the mall is going in. We did an improvement district there, and actually what that is all the property owners pay us, and then we pay the bond. So there's no city funding that's going into this. McDowell Road corridor. Thank you. And so anyways, it is part of our debt portfolio and our payment, but it is the property owners that pay us for that. And so those are the major components, again, operating, and then we have a capital plan that runs about $10 million for next year, and then debt service about $25 million. And so those are the major components of our fiscal year proposed 14 budget that's moving forward. I have a Brian slide here. I'll leave it for you. You know what it says? I said I'll leave it for you.
Yes, thank you, Terry. That was Terry Kennett, our budget manager. For those just tuning in, Brian Dahlke, city manager. You got to miss the first part of my presentation, perhaps. But this is a point where if the public has any questions, fill out the card. We have staff right here. They can capture your card. We can try and answer questions if you want to do it that way. The other option is if you want to just fill out the card and not have us answer it during this meeting, we can certainly try and answer it afterward. And you have that opportunity. Plus, staff will be hanging around for a little bit if you have questions specifically that you want to talk to one of our directors. We have directors really representing all areas of the city in the audience. And then lastly, you'll see that we do have our website, www.goodyearaz.gov. You can access this presentation on there. And so it will be available. It's on the Transparency in Government page. And then it will also allow those that are viewing, will be viewing this later, an opportunity to ask questions, provide comments. We will take those. We will look at those. It's important for us to get that input. And then we will summarize and share with the council this coming Monday, May the 6th, as far as some of the public comments that we have received. Because, again, it's very important for us to understand what your questions and comments are. So with that, I appreciate everyone being here. Do we have any cards? I don't see any cards. With that, that adjourns, really ends our presentation as far as the staff presentation. But thank you for your participation, whether it's through the web or here in person.